Well, hello and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics, your go-to platform for in-depth political analysis on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we'll take a deep dive into the state of the nation, examining the shifting political landscape and the effectiveness of our governance structures. With growing concerns over the alleged failure of the three arms of government to uphold checks and balances, we assess the implications of recent developments, including the suspension of River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara, the appointment of a sole administrator for the state, and the controversial National Assembly votes endorsing President Tinubu's decision. As tensions rise, opposition leaders decry what they see as an erosion of the rule of law and efforts to stifle dissent. Yet, amid the uncertainty, civil society advocates remain steadfast in their push for accountability and good governance. Well, we're going to be speaking to some of them on the program tonight to try to dimension what this current situation says about Nigeria's path towards continuous development in our democracy and what this means for the rule of law in the country. Speaking of some of those loud political voices, let's have a listen to Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo, formerly of the Labour Party and the Obedient Movement, and his characterization of the current state of affairs. As you can imagine, there are polarizing views over what has happened recently and what this means for Nigeria's democracy to continue. Have a listen.
It is a bad thing for any human being with all the disorders and affections of the human mind to be the sovereign authority, which ought to be reserved for the law itself. Tinubu is not the sovereign authority in Nigeria. Sovereignty belongs to the people, and every government derives its power and authority from the people. And the people have spoken through the constitution and through the laws that no president should remove elected. The implication is that we don't have democracy anymore. Because if you can remove elected representatives of the people, why would you call them to come and vote next time? If there is an invasion against Nigeria, will Tinubu agree that the military will come and sack him and give reason that it is because of the invasion? And because of the invasion, there is a need for a state of emergency. And when there is a state of emergency, the president has to go. And then they rule by decree. Because that's exactly what the president did. And you know the difference. If there is an invasion against Nigeria, the law gives power to declare state of emergency. There is no invasion of any part of Nigeria. There is no threat of war. I'm even hearing that Cameroonians are harassing Nigerians in the mangrove. Maybe Tinubu should consider declaring a state of emergency and giving up his seat and inviting another military man to come and take over, because Cameroon is invading Nigeria. Because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So,
very critical assessment there, and this has been the nature of the characterization of the public conversation on both sides, between those who support the move and those who have been quite clear about their disdain for this particular trend and what it means for Nigeria, mostly on the political side and some members of the civil society. Well, let's speak to someone who knows a thing or two about the conversation around good governance in Nigeria, the democratic space, as well as the need for sustaining rule of law. Joining us for tonight's conversation is founder of Clearview Integrity Foundation, an anti-corruption campaigner, and of course a public affairs commentator. Mr. Sunday Amos is joining us virtually from his residence in Yola this evening. As always, a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's conversation. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Abdullahi. It's a great pleasure, as usual, to be here.
Right. We're going to touch base on a variety of issues. As you can imagine, Nigeria has been quite inundated with a variety of issues, but the main issue has been the developments from River State as it continues to snowball into something even bigger. Um, on one hand, you have people who want to make a constitutional argument for or against what has happened. On the other hand, you also have people who are making political statements about what this actually means for Nigeria's democracy going forward. There are some who just want to move on from this incident and look ahead to the future and what comes next. How do you situate what has happened and what that represents for Nigeria as a fledgling democratic nation?
Are we still a fledgling democratic nation? I think the characterization by now should be should be wrong. By now, we ought to be a grandfather of democracy, despite the age that we claim. A man that is 60-something years old is a grandfather by now in many places in Nigeria. So we're no longer fledgling. We're no longer a nascent democracy. We're a mature democracy. We're supposed to be a mature democracy by now. But what we are seeing play out is a rape of democracy, and it's because it's been allowed to fester for too long. They test the water, we keep quiet, they go deeper, we keep quiet, and they keep going deeper. And for me, all the commentators so far, whether it is constitutional or political or whatever it is, have said what is very, very clear. What has happened in River State is a political overreach. It's a presidential overreach. This is the same person who condemned what happened during the Goodluck regime, albeit that Goodluck didn't remove any governor in Yobe, Borno, and Adamawa State. They were still intact. And yet, if you read the statement by Tinubu and his cohorts at the time, you know, it is nothing close to him coming to do what he has done now. But for me, between yesterday and today, the greatest shame is that of the National Assembly. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal person, but I know what 2/3 majority is. Now, Abdullahi, how do you count 2/3 from a voice vote? Is it understanding that our National Assembly members do not have? Or is it just daftness? Or is it just impunity? Is it just spitting on the face of Nigerians to say there's nothing you can do? In fact, the worst one was that guy. I wish I knew who that guy was who shouted the loudest. I could imagine how wide his mouth was in shouting that I, you know. So how do you measure 2/3 majority from a voice vote?
Right.
Okay. And this is Nigerian National Assembly.
Okay.
So for me, it's a shame. It's a shame what has happened. It's impunity what is happening. And somehow, I don't know how, but it needs to be checked.
Okay. Pardon the interruption. I just wanted to bring our attention to one particular issue, especially the one that you pointed out there, because some of the takeaways from the National Assembly has been the fact that while people understood that the president needed the National Assembly's approval, which according to the Constitution would be determined by 2/3 of the majority of both chambers of the National Assembly, many people were left scratching their heads, raising that same point that you just made here. But I just wanted to take a quick look at this, the standing rules of the Nigerian Senate. We're also going to take a look at what's been provided for in the House of Representatives. According to the Senate standing rules, which guides the operations of the Nigerian Senate, Order 73 of the Senate standing order says that key points of a voice vote in the Nigerian Senate, right? It says procedure. The Senate President or presiding officer puts a question to the Senate and the senators respond with either aye in favor or nay against. Now, the decision by the Senate President, based on the loudness of the response, he decides which has the majority. Now, there is also a provision for right to call for division. If a senator disagrees with the ruling of the presiding officer on the voice vote, they may invoke Order 73, requesting a division, a physical vote count, or electronic voting to confirm the result. binding nature. If no senator challenges the ruling, the voice vote stands as the final decision of the Nigerian Senate. Likewise, you find the same thing in Order 10, Rule 6 in the House of Representatives. So it's a matter of application, Mr. Sunday Amos, that we didn't hear a single dissenting voice or one that is in disagreement with the vote. So is it safe to say that it doesn't matter whether it was a voice vote or not, because it was quite unanimous? We can all agree on that.
We begin to argue about words. Look at the position of Abuja in the Electoral Act, for example, and Abuja, and we started arguing what is the meaning of "and," and at the end we had to jettison the whole thing, and we kept the Electoral Act at the side and did an illegality. Now you are talking about there was no dissent. How can there be a dissent? How can any senator or any member of the House of Reps oppose the motion? We know what happens to those who oppose. We know what happened to Ali Ndume. We know what happened to Natasha. We know what happens to the voice of dissent in the National Assembly. Everybody will beat his head down. Nobody, in fact, they will attack him. They will force him to withdraw. So it is dangerous to come out and dissent. It is dangerous to come out and oppose. Everybody has been beaten to silence, battered into silence in the National Assembly. Nobody has the balls to go against Akpabio. Nobody has the balls to go against Tinubu in the National Assembly. Whether you like it, you don't like it, when Tinubu appears, they will sing "On Your Mandate We Stand." Look at what even happened. You declared a state of emergency. The law says you needed two-thirds majority ratification. Because of the disdain you have for the National Assembly and for all Nigerians, you didn't even wait for this charade of a voice vote. You went ahead and swore the man in. So what else do you need to tell you that Tinubu does not have any respect for the National Assembly, does not have any respect for Nigerians, does not have any respect for the laws of Nigeria, that you could swear in, that you could go ahead and swear in a sole administrator without even recourse to the National Assembly? And we do not have a National Assembly when there is no opposition. All the PDP voted aye. All the Labour voted aye. All the ABGA voted aye. What sign, again, Abdullahi, do you need to know that all is not well in our National Assembly? So all those order this, order that, rules of the this, rules of the that, all those rules are kept aside. Dissent has been crushed in the National Assembly. And again, finally, we know the story that is going around that, is it $10,000 or $5,000? You go to social person's guest house and then somebody greases your hand with such amount of money. I don't know whether it is true or not. We know it has been happening in Nigeria before. Ghana must go used to fly around when such things need to be done. And so you cannot collect $10,000 and not observe good table manners. You can't eat while you are talking, Abdullahi. So I do not expect dissent when $10,000 has exchanged hands.
I think you forgot to use the word allegedly in making that remark, because as far as...
help me add it, please. Let me add it. Yes, allegedly. But I said there's reports going on in the media. Right. Whether it is true or not, I don't know. But I know it has happened before. And there's no reason to believe that it doesn't happen again, especially with this kind of legislature that we have.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that is something that many Nigerians are quite uncomfortable with. I remember earlier in the day, we had on a different platform sought the opinions of Nigerians about what they made of the performance of the National Assembly yesterday. And for the most part, most people are saying, well, they took their own vote, but they were not sure if that was representative of what their constituents actually wanted. But you pointed out how some of these PDP, Labour Party, SDP voices were quite silent. It's safe to say that they gave their silent approval to what has happened, right? But outside of the parliament, you've seen the likes of the Atiku Abubakars, the Peter Obis, the Erufais, all the other key political figures, socio-cultural groups, socio-political groups, you know, push back against this particular decision.
I'm sorry, there was a breakage at some point. Could you repeat yourself, Abdullahi?
Yeah, I was just asking. There was no opposition in the National Assembly. even though there were some disagreements here and there, but in terms of the vote, it was quite unanimous. But outside of the parliaments, right, the PDPs, the SDPs, and all the other political figures are speaking with one voice about their disapproval of what the president has done. What does that say about the formidability of the opposition in actually keeping the Tinubu administration on its toes? Because in government, there doesn't appear to be opposition except outside of it, as the arm of government, the legislature, is supposed to reflect what the views of the opposition are. But in this particular situation, there appears to be none. So what do you make of the position of the opposition, you know, side of the argument? Right, I think we've lost our connection to. I think we've lost our connection to Mr. Sunday Amos. We're going to work on that to get him back on the program. But let's also take you to River State, where sole administrator, Air Vice Marshal, retired Air Vice Marshal Ibok Ete-Bas, sat with some traditional rulers while he gave them the rundown of what he expects in terms of cooperation and what the state needs moving forward. He also did confirm that the local government allocations as well as the state's allocations might have already been released in an effort to address the needs of the states financially in terms of meeting its obligations. And some have also drawn conclusions that this is yet another legal hurdle that the Tinubu administration has to be responsible for, because appropriations have not been made for those funds to be utilized by a sole administrator. So let's have a listen to the new sheriff in town in River State.
Whoever peace will come to River State through him, to God be the glory. We are not in doubt of what you can do. Before you were chosen to be here in this time of crisis in River State, we know you are able, and God will help you to see through our problems. So we want to say welcome to the state, and may God help you in your endeavors to see that the assignment in this state is fruitful.
Your Royal Majesties, in our quest for peace and stability, it is imperative that traditional rulers shun all acts of partisanship, whether through their actions, speeches, or body language. The traditional institution must remain a neutral and impartial arbiter, respected by all for its fairness and integrity. I urge you to distance yourselves overtly and covertly from any acts of cultism, violence, community rifts, vandalism, or any form of.
Right, the thoughts of some of the traditional rulers there. One of them we heard welcoming the sole administrator in River State, Ibok Ete-Bas there, and of course he admonished them to remain apolitical and non-partisan for the most part in that remark, saying that this is what River State needs to get back on track. I believe we have Mr. Sunday Amos back online now. You heard the thoughts of the new sheriff in town. Yesterday, he gave the riot act. He will not tolerate lawlessness. He's there to stop the bleeding and stabilize one of Nigeria's richest states. What is your reading? I mean, no point in crying over spilled milk now. It has happened already. But what is your reading of the work that is ahead of him now to try to stabilize what has been a turbulent situation in Rivers?
Well, thank you. The Rear Admiral, is presiding over an illegality. It doesn't matter the good work he does. He is presiding over an illegality. And the people who put him there have already put a credibility question on him, because knowing who Wike is, knowing who Tinubu is, we know that their agenda is not a good one for Rivers State. We know that 2027 is the end game for all the fight in Rivers State. So whatever Tinubu will do in Rivers State and whatever Wike will do in Rivers State is not for the benefit of Rivers State, is not for the benefit of Nigeria. It is for their own benefit. And they will definitely look for somebody who will meet their benefit, those who will do their bidding, knowing the intolerant nature of who Wike is, that he cannot tolerate dissent. And Tinubu himself, who cannot tolerate dissent, to the point that even an innocent NYSC girl cannot express her frustration without NYSC officials coming for her jugular. It tells you the kind of nation that we're in. So the person who was selected to go and run Rivers as a sole administrator, you know very well he's there to do the bidding of Mr. President and or Chief Nyesom Wike. So one, he is presiding over an illegality, and I know that he is not there for good of Rivers State, but for the good of these two people. They have made it abundantly clear by their words and actions.
Right. Talking about the core member, I'm not sure if we can place that on the president, what has happened so far, the call made by the NYC to that core member who has gone viral for that.
Well, it's a system. It's a system. It's a system. It's a system that has been established, Abdullahi. You cannot dissent in the National Assembly. You cannot dissent as a minister. You cannot dissent on the streets. Nowhere, there is nowhere that you can open your mouth and express opposition without you being the subject of attack. Even people like me who speak very bluntly like this, we do it at the risk of so many things. But it's just that at this age, you got to speak the truth. What is happening is not right in Nigeria. And that's why we are putting, the buck stops at his table.
Right.
The buck stops at the table of the president. And that is the basis on which we are mentioning his name. And besides, she mentioned his name, that he was terrible. And what is there in saying my president is terrible? I remember when Obama made a speech before the United Nations, he said there are Americans who hate him. And it is his duty to protect their rights to continue to hate him. So if I say my president is terrible, is that enough for the whole NYSC to come crashing down on my head? Where is protected speech in Nigeria? What is in saying that my president is terrible? From what I am feeling, from what I am suffering, I think my president is terrible. This is what this little girl said.
Right. So
I have the right to say the buck stops at his table. There is a system that has been created that is against any form of dissent. And it's not healthy for Nigeria.
And in talking about the situation in Rivers, because it has overshadowed any other conversation in the polity over the past couple of days, right? You made it sound like it's good versus evil. And I just want you to contextualize there when you were talking about the president and the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. Who is on the good side and who is on the right side and who is on the wrong side here? I don't know if you got the question. Can you hear me, Mr. Sunday? I believe he's having some difficulty hearing me, so we're going to sort that out to get back to the conversation.
The question again, please. There's a crack again.
Yeah, okay. So the question was, earlier when you were trying to analyze the actors involved, you made it sound like it's good versus evil. So I'm asking the question, who is on the right side of things and who is on the wrong side of things here? And how do you want Nigerians to really unpack this without the politics of it? Because at so many points in time, Governor Sim Fubara would have been labeled as the one being in the wrong, the demolition of the State Assembly complex, the denial of these members their entitlements and allowances for over a year plus. I mean, you're making it sound so simple that there is good versus evil here. Okay, it does appear that we're having some challenge with the connection there. We're going to work on that to get back to the conversation. A reminder that today you get an opportunity to be a part of the conversation, so the phone lines will be open in a couple of minutes so that you can chime in on this particular conversation. Remember, we're touching base on not just rivers, but a variety of issues that are emerging in the polity in Osun State. There's also this talk over the past week that the APC in the state is calling on the federal government under Ahmed Tinubu to apply the same sort of pressure to Governor or a delegate in the state. And that has become quite the contentious issue because there have been some communal unrest. In fact, the governor just recently announced curfew hours in some of those troubled areas. Now, the question is, Osun State is yet another PDP-run state. Will the president be open to the idea of yet another state of emergency? Because that is what the APC in the state and other political stakeholders are advising the president to do because of the perceived instability within the polity. And remember that fight over the local government elections as well as leadership is concerned. I believe we have Mr. Sunday Amos back. Apologies, the network can be quite tricky, as you may have observed. But the question was, who is on the good side, who is on the bad side here? Earlier you were talking about how the former governor, current minister of the FCT, and the president are on the wrong side of things. So my question is, who is on the right side of things? Hello, Mr. Sunday, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Come again, please.
Right, okay. I said, who is on the right and who is on the wrong side of things? You made it sound like it's good versus evil earlier.
No. Fubara is not a saint. He has his own issues. First and foremost, if you made an agreement with Wike, why don't you keep to your own side of the agreement? Why will you promise him something and you fail to keep it? Why will you promise to be loyal to him and you are now coming to rebel? Why did you go and put a noose around your neck? It is evil to agree to do something and only in the middle of the game you want to shift the goalpost. There is no honor in it. If he's your godfather, you have accepted to be his godson, and you agreed that you are going to be loyal to him. You agreed, whatever the agreement is, I don't know, but you made agreement. Clearly, Wike is behaving like a vampire because you had an agreement with him. And you are not keeping to your own end of the bargain. So you are not a saint. Fubara is not a saint. I'm not saying any of these things in support of Fubara, please. And by the way, look at how you went and demolished a whole House of Assembly complex. What is the meaning of that? To stop people from meeting. You went and demolished a whole state structure to show that Rivers has money to build 10 times the House of Assembly or what? That is absolute rubbish. And then look at all the talk. You know that people are bigger than you, stronger than you, and you open your mouth and be saying things that tomorrow you come and be regretting. I was really very disappointed when I saw him go to the House of Assembly to represent the 2025 budget, claiming in obedience to the Supreme Court, and they closed the door against him. I thought he was going to be bold enough to say, I will not represent the 2025 budget. That is how a man behaves. So Abdullahi they are all birds of the same feather. They come from the same chip of the block. They are men and women of dishonor. They know what they are doing. But I want to say that Wike, Fubara, the president, none of them is guiltless in this matter. All of them have their, and this new guy that even came in as sole administrator is also part of the problem too. So none of them is guiltless.
Talk to me about the concerns coming out of Osun State. There is a security concern there. Some communal clashes have inundated parts of the state over the past couple of weeks against the backdrop of all the political tensions from the council elections that were supposed to be, that may even be at the end of the day. There's that fight there. And the APC in the state has called on the president to apply the same measure to address that instability. They're calling for a state of emergency in Osun State. Are you worried that this may be what could happen if things do not stabilize?
Well, permit me to be a little sarcastic. Let the president go ahead and declare a state of emergency in Osun State again. Since this is what he wants to do, and by the way, it's a PDP state. When the president is from a particular party, he will never declare a state under that party's control under a state of emergency. But to be serious and to be honest with you, it just doesn't make sense. The president should not make the mistake he has made in Rivers State on Osun State. Of course, there are political tensions. Of course, there are political disagreements. Is a state of emergency the last option? Have all the options been explored? What is really the thing in Osun State that even the APC is beginning to say declare a state of emergency? It will be a gross mistake. Let me not take too much of your time, but I'll just tell you it will be a gross mistake if they go ahead to declare a state of emergency in Osun State. It is not necessary. The situation does not call for it, and the president should not fall for it.
Earlier, I was asking the question about the lack of opposition in government. And when I say in government, I mean in the National Assembly, for instance, because that's where you have people in the opposition working for an arm of government. And you did establish that, you know, you were quite disappointed that there was not even a single nay in the House and in the Senate, because you alluded to how they're afraid of dissenting. But outside of government, we've been hearing this rallying call on the judiciary to come and save the day, right? You heard the Atikus talk, the Peter Obis have been speaking, the Erufais, political groups, socio-cultural groups, people in the civil society space like you have been speaking. How do we square this circle when it comes to the opposition in government not working in tandem with the opposition out of government?
There's that thing has been worrying me, Abdullahi, and there's a proposition that is taking a very strong root in my mind concerning members of the National Assembly. The truth of the matter is that they are hungry. The truth of the matter is that poverty is destroying them. I think it is because we used to think it was greed, because they can do anything, to strike a deal. But I'm getting more and more convinced that our senators and our members of the National Assembly are very poor, and they are ready to trade their consciences for any kind of deal. If not, how do you explain, with all the noise made by opposition leaders outside the parliament, you now go to a whole Senate and not one dissenting voice from PDP or Labour or NNPP or APGA, not one, an entire conspiracy of silence. There must be a reason. There must be something these opposition leaders are hoping to get out of this deal. And so my perspective about them is changing. These are people who are hungry. Despite all the money they are making, they are still hungry. They are poor. It is poverty that is disturbing them, and they are looking for deals to make more money. And for me, I think that is a very scary proposition if that is really the situation, because I cannot understand, I cannot wrap my mind around how all the opposition parties, who are more than members of the ruling party, nobody, it's not about being scared of dissent now. Yes, that component must be there too, but there must be a level of poverty, starting from the poverty of the mind, that is worrying them that they want money to contest the next election, and so they are ready to strike whatever kind of deal in order to get more resources to fight the next election. I don't know, but our legislators are poor. And let me tell you one other group of people that are very, very poor. Our SANs, Senior Advocates of Nigeria. If you want to know the best brains that we have, the senior advocates, if you want to know how intelligent that we are, bring an illegality and throw money on the table, you will see how best the Nigerian brains are. But defending what is good, defending the Constitution, defending what is right, beating INEC at our game, beating our judiciary at their game, you will not find our SANs there because there's nobody to give them money. But where money is involved, you will see the best out of our SANs. It doesn't matter where that money is going to come from. So we have legislators who are hungry, judges who are hungry, lawyers who are hungry. Politicians understand this and they are ready to give them money. They are ready to give them whatever they want to get what they want, in order to also get what they want for themselves. This is, for me, the inevitable conclusion I'm arriving, looking at what is happening with our judiciary and with our legislature.
Looking at the Constitution, because the legal conversation has been about the powers of the president to impose a state of emergency given certain criteria as mentioned in section 305. Do you think that the answer to this quagmire is for an amendment that will be very specific about what the president can do in implementing that, so that there is no ambiguity or room for misinterpretation, for instance?
Well, Abdullahi, for me at this point, I think that it doesn't seem to matter what the provisions of the Constitution are. Impunity is the new sheriff in town. Impunity is the new sheriff in town. We have seen the Electoral Act in black and white maligned and bastardized and destroyed. And the Supreme Court upheld the destruction of our Electoral Act. We have the Constitution. The president will declare an emergency ratified by 2/3. It has not been followed. The heavens did not fall. And so I am thinking that it doesn't matter what the provisions are. We have impunity ruling Nigeria now. They can always explain it away. They can interpret it and reinterpret it the way they want. And the Supreme Court is there to back them up under the necessary environmental conditions. So it doesn't matter really what the black and white of the law says, because we have people who are ready to spit on it and march on it, and there's nothing that can happen. This is my job, my assessment of the whole situation.
All right. Some would say there is also validity in the argument of the other side, who see that the president is only trying to do the right thing to stop what has become a cancer in River State over the past 18 to 19 months or so, or less, since the Fubara Wiki political fallout began. We're going to open the conversation to our viewers. If you have a thing or two to say, you can weigh in. A question, please feel free to be a part of it. The number will be shown on your TV screen in just a moment. Mr. Sunday, let's segue into yet another conversation. Senator Natasha has been in the news up until this point, but we are witnessing what looks like an assault from the home front for her, politically speaking, with some of our constituents reportedly instituting a recall process, even though we understand that there is a court injunction that is trying to stop the Independent National Electoral Commission from doing just that. What are your thoughts about what's happening in Kogi Central regarding Senator Natasha's back and forth with the state, with the Senate?
I think there was a crack again, Abdullahi.
Right.
If can you confirm if you are talking about attempts at a recall?
Yes, exactly. That's the point.
Okay. Well, what you are witnessing in Kogi State is not a genuine attempt at a recall. Just gather people, promise them 500 naira or 10,000 naira, and they will be ready to do anything. Look at what happened in the National Assembly protest by women in Abuja. The women came not knowing why they were there. They came, they were promised, they would have been told that they are going to rally in support of Akpabio and that somebody is against the Senate president. And they will come. So anything can be told to the people on ground. Just come with your PVC. We need your signature. They can even possibly tell the people that we want to do it in support of Natasha. Come and put your signature, show us your PV, we will give you this amount. So it's not a genuine attempt at recall, but it is very easy for them to succeed because they have resources to push through this particular attempt, no matter how illegal it is. But again, you know that if it is a genuine attempt to recall, the National Assembly members will rally around their own. There has been no successful recall of any senator. Please prove me wrong. I'll be happy to know if I'm wrong. But till date, there has been no successful recall of a senator because, or member House of Reps, because their colleagues will rally behind them and make it impossible for it to happen. But because this is a dissenting voice, and they have given this dog a bad name, and they are now trying to hang this female dog, it's very easy for them to succeed in securing the required number of signatures. And I can assure you they will do first, second, and third reading in less than 3 minutes. And before you know it, Senator Natasha is recalled. We are in uncharted waters. It is unfortunate. It is dangerous. It is impunity that is ruling. And something has to stop this.
And what do you say to people who say, Mr. Sunday Amos, maybe you should consider keeping an open mind and understand that there is a need for you to see the silver lining here. There's a need for you to see how the glass is half full. The glass is not necessarily half empty all the time. Is there a positive sign to some of these developments? Do you think there are some teachable lessons from this experience for our politics and for our democracy?
Yeah, see, we have talked about this half cup, half full, half empty thing. I don't know whether there's any drop inside the cup, to be honest with you. But we have hope for Nigeria. There is a silver lining. We know where the root problem is. One, a credible electoral process where results are streamed in real time from the polling unit. Ghana could get it right. Europe, every country are getting it right. They cast election in the morning, by evening the results are out and there are no dissenting voices about the process. With all our resources, it is not impossible for us to have a credible electoral process without hiding behind glitches and so on and so forth. So the silver lining we have is that we now know where the problem is. Let us go to the root cause of the problem and do a major surgery. Okay. The second area of silver lining that we hope something can be done about is our judiciary. And now, the level that is in the eye of the storm is the Supreme Court. The embarrassing nature of our Supreme Court. That even the highest legal luminaries of Nigeria are confused about what to do with judgments coming from the Supreme Court. These two areas provide for us opportunities to address. A credible electoral process will not give for us questionable characters that are ruling Nigeria like the ones that are ruling Nigeria presently. And a credible independent judiciary. Those whose houses are not being built by Wike. Somebody is calling Wike now the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He can do anything and nothing can happen. His level of impunity has gone haywire now that he is the Oga Patapata of Nigeria or the judiciary. So it may be allegations, but what we are seeing is proving this point, Abdullahi. Okay. So unless we clean up our judiciary and clean up our electoral process, this level of impunity can only grow from bad to worse. And for me, I think these two areas provide the only silver linings that we need to do something about.
Okay, I believe we have a caller on the line, so let's see if we can get their thoughts on this one. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. Who is on the line?
Hello, good evening.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Where are you calling from, and who's on the line?
I'm calling from Benue State. My name is Tony Eze.
Come again?
My name is Tony Eze. I'm calling from Benue State.
Mr. Tony Eze, it's been a while. Thank you so much for calling. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I think the problem we have, particularly in Rivers State, is is as the inability of judiciary to perform well. Now, the legislator that defected, if they handle well, because at the end we start hearing that there is some certain steps that they're supposed to take, that coming on media to tell people that they have defected is not enough. If somebody have called a press conference and then tell the whole world that I'm no longer a member of PDP, I'm on the other side, and the judiciary is telling us that evidence is not enough. So the problem we have in the society is as inability of judiciary to do what they're supposed to do. And that is the problem. We are talking about this thing couldn't have reached to this stage if judiciary is working in Nigeria. If Utfubara is not doing well, we go to court. And what we have in case of Rivers State, Port Harcourt is bringing a different judgment. Abuja is bringing a different judgment. It's a pity. I'm short of words.
Right.
Thank you.
I can understand your disappointment, Mr. Eze, Tony Eze, as always. Thank you so much for calling in on the program. You were just making a similar point earlier before Mr. Eze called in on the program. The judiciary, as we like to say in this country, is the last hope of the common man. Don't you think they have what it takes to save the day?
No. The judiciary has since undergone a transformation, Abdullahi. The Nigerian judiciary used to be the last hope of the common man. Then it became the lost hope of the common man. And it has now effectively become the last hope of the corrupt man. This is where we are today. Everybody can do whatever they want and run to the judiciary for cover. Just have the right amount with you, get the right amount of SANs who are sufficiently hungry, and you can go ahead with your loot. So I no longer agree that the Nigerian judiciary is the last hope of the common man. It is now the last hope of the corrupt man. That is, for all intents and purposes, what we are seeing with the Nigerian judiciary.
That is quite dismissive of everything else that the courts have been able to do in terms of delivering quality judgments. I mean, it's fair to say that they have given some questionable judgments over the past couple of years, but is that enough to say that there is no longer a need to have hope that the judiciary can salvage any sort of misunderstanding in terms of the application of the rule of law?
Well, if the highest, I was listening to Agbakoba, if highest luminaries are echoing what I am saying, Abdullahi, me that is a layman as far as judicial matters are concerned, how can you prove me wrong? The most consequential rulings of the Supreme Court have brought Nigeria to where we are today. Look at the Amos state government issue. The person who became fourth became the governor of the state. Look at the position of Akpabio in the Senate. Somebody who contested the presidency and lost, now went back and took the Senate form, and today he is the Senate president. Look at the things that are happening with the Kogi state, former Kogi state governor. So if it were laymen, ignorant men, judicially speaking, who are expressing what I'm expressing, I believe you could say what you are saying. But even top legal luminaries are saying exactly the kind of things that we are saying. Lawyers and SANs have come out to say, pocket INEC, pocket security agencies, pocket the judiciary, and you are in office. And when you get to office, you know the kind of thing that you want to do. Now, as we are talking now, the legislature and the judiciary are effectively in the pocket of the executive. What do you expect? What good do you expect? I'm not being pessimistic. I'm not being dismissive. But the most consequential issues that drive the direction of Nigeria have not been good coming from the judiciary. And simply because our judiciary is not independent. Their salaries, their funding, their quotas, everything is being handled by the executive. And when you know it is said, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. This is the basis of my position. I will be happy to be proved wrong, but presently this is where I stand.
And on that bleak note, Mr. Sunday Amos, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Thank you so much for your analysis. We do appreciate you for joining the conversation tonight.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Right. And that is a wrap on tonight and this week's edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do not forget, we'll be back next week, Monday. You can also tune in on Sunday for Sunday Politics Live at 8 p.m. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you soon.